Yes, Marty. I can make a living at that.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
We're here to do the Shared Services Recognition Award. I'd like to introduce John Van Etten. He's the chairman for the Government Affairs Committee.
Good morning. Thank you all for coming here today. I just want to give you a quick background on how this recognition program came to be. It was at our 2007 Chamber Board of Directors retreat in Lake Placid. When we all get together and discuss issues that we need to give attention to in the coming year, which was 2007. And one of the issues that kept coming up is the cost of doing business. And of course, part of that is real estate taxes that we as small businesses pay. But the underlying issue in all of it was how can we get municipalities or school districts, any entities of that nature to come together and share services and really in a sense save taxpayer dollars and help small business. So we brought that back to the Government Affairs Committee, which I chair, and we came up with this program in which we will 2 or 3 times a year recognize municipalities and schools for issues where they've come together to share some services, which is why you're all here today. We would like you to, so we'll do that 2 or 3 times a year, and then once a year at the annual dinner, we will have a grand prize, which we think is the one that stood out best for the year and deserves the additional recognition. So we'd like you to send those to the chamber anytime there are some shared services that deserve some recognition, no matter how large or small they are. And that's the basis for this event today. But at this point, it's my honor to call up the champion of shared services recognition, a lady that we all know and love here in the North Country, and somebody who many of us have had the opportunity to hear say when she's asked for money for new things, have you thought about sharing services with somebody else? So I would like to recognize and bring up Senator Betty Lowe.
Thank you. Thank you, John, and I apologize for being late. I was at the office, and there are always a lot of issues to deal with at the office, a lot of people coming in, and so I got a little bit behind, but I apologize. I became interested in the idea of what we could do better together and how we could combine some of the efforts of the different municipalities and school districts, really when I became a senator. Because as we started looking at the Senate district, and I acquired new territory, certainly than what I had as an assembly member, I realized that I now represented 6 counties, 2 cities, 88 towns, 25 villages, and 53 school districts, which seemed as though we ought to be able to work together and work more closely together, and we have. And there were many informal types of shared services agreements going on in towns and villages working closely together. But we needed to do more, and we needed to do better. And as the property taxes, well, and basically the property taxes have risen, and the value of property has risen in the Adirondacks, and the number of people paying those property taxes has not gone up. The growth is not here in most of this district. We became to hear more and more from the people that taxes are too high. People are leaving New York State talking about how can I pay $17,000 in property taxes My total income's $47,000, my tax bill is $7,000 a year. I can't continue to do that. And then hearing about one woman told me they're moving to Greensboro, North Carolina. They have a nephew who has a 4-bedroom brick ranch and pays $700 a year, total tax bill. So New York State's taxes are really way too high, and it is driving people out of the state. So trying to see if there aren't economies of scale, which there should be, as we work more closely together. You have counties of 400,000, 500,000 that operate as one. We have smaller counties. We have a lot of distance between them, but we have improved technology today that you can fax and email and be on the same computer system and do a lot of those things which add to it. So it sounds like a no-brainer, but let me tell you, it isn't. And I recently come to the conclusion that everyone, absolutely everyone, wants less government, lower taxes, and no change. And I don't know how you can do it that way. So I think it's wonderful that the Chamber has decided to recognize people who are willing to step outside and be more creative and look at how we can change things. How can we buy a piece of equipment together? How can we combine our departments? How can we use the same purchasing contracts? How can we purchase together? And there's so much more that can be done, and it needs to be done in the schools. I was at school board's meeting last night, and they had 8 speakers, and I was the first. And then we heard from school superintendents, school business officers, school boards, region, state ed, and everybody's, really talking about, wow, and schools are tough because their insurance costs, their pension costs, their costs of educating children and the needs and the desires of what everybody wants is costing so much more. And as they were about to close the program, something inside of me I lost it. I dashed up to the speaker's platform and I said, I just have to be a little more honest here. And I can't leave tonight without saying that no matter what, all these reasons as to why we need to continue to spend, we can't continue because of the property tax issues. And every place we go, if we don't do something about the property tax issues, we're going to be out the door. And New York State is going to be on a continued downhill slide. And there are things going on. I'm on the Governor's Commission on Government Efficiency and Competitiveness, and I will tell you that a lot of the people from the big cities are from Long Island, or from New York City, Westchester, Buffalo, and all that, and they look at things like if you're too small, then you shouldn't get anything, and all the small people should work together. And I said, that sounds great until you get to the distance. I had this great idea that we should have one fuel station, and 2 towns or 3 towns ought to do it. And one guy said to me, well, when your truck gets 2 to 3 miles to a gallon, what are you saving by driving 25 miles to fill up with gas? So a lot of our issues are distance that you can't do that way. And we really had to fight the fight for rural things. And Janie's on that commission with me. And, I didn't dare leave the room. When I was there, I was at the table, and they'd say, well, if you need to make a phone call or something, I wasn't sure what they were going to do while we were gone. So, but they do have some ideas, and some of them I don't think are going to be terribly popular. But as I sat there and I tried to balance what's really right and what should we look at is something that we ought to do. And we have to look beyond what we've always done. I'm a supporter, and maybe a lot of people in this room are, but I'm a supporter of taking that opportunity. And maybe it wouldn't work, but taking the 2 community colleges that are both looking for a new president and seeing, are there opportunities for savings here? We may find out that there aren't. But you could still have 4 campuses with 1 president, and maybe 1 admissions, and 1 purchasing, and 1 food service. And, maybe there are savings, maybe there aren't. But I believe that we owe it to the taxpayers, whenever we see those opportunities, to really look at them and analyze them, and is there a savings? And it might require a change, But maybe that change is for the betterment of everybody. And a lot of times, it might save money, it might not save a lot of money, but it might be better quality. So that's something to look at as well. So I've had a few successes. I've had a lot of not so successes, but hopefully, you know, many people are looking at things a little differently than they had done. And the pressure is from the taxpayer, and there's no doubt about that. So I think that going forward, we in government have that responsibility to look at sharing services. But we're here today to actually recognize, to honor, and to thank people who have done that, who have looked outside the box and decided, hey, we could do something better by working together on this. And I really appreciate that, and I thank the Chamber, because recognition is good. Recognition not only thanks those who are doing it, but it plants the seed elsewhere. It says to the other guy, what are you doing? You know, have you thought about doing this? And maybe there's a way that you can work together too. I had one success in the beginning, and this is before Governor Pataki took on the program, and then Governor Spitzer has continued the program. We now, this year, there'll be $30 million in the budget for incentives for shared services. And I started with memorandum ideas and Senate initiative grants. The village of Cambridge and Greenwich in Washington County, one police chief was retiring. They looked at combining their two police forces for the two villages. They're about 10 miles apart, 8 to 10 miles. And they did it. And I helped and got them some money to do things. They ended up with a computer system that works in both offices, and a crook in one village is a crook in the other village, and they've got really can keep track of who's who. And actually they had more policemen on the street because they were able to save in the administration. And I've had one complaint, and the guy said that they overdo it. He had gotten 3 tickets. I didn't feel too sorry for him. So there's a lot that can be done, but I appreciate the fact that many of you are working hard to do that, and I thank you. And thank you.
Can I ask the three of you to be up here and join the presentation? Call them up. Because these involve sharing, they're actually a grouping of 2 or more recipients in each one of the projects that we're spotlighting today. But we'll call the component towns and villages up one by one and have you a chance to get your certificate and have a picture taken. But then I ask you all to remain up here, because in the end we would like all of the recipients to be up here as a group. The towns of Bangor, Moira, and Fort Covington are being recognized for jointly acquiring a $199,000 road zipper for future paving activities, collaboratively using a piece of equipment rather than buying 2 or 3 pieces of equipment for the separate towns. Here for the town of Bangor is David Neal, supervisor, and Dennis Curto, superintendent of highways. Representing the town of Fort Covington, Gerald LaRue, superintendent of highways, and Patricia Manchester, supervisor.
Thank you.
And here for the town of Moira, Cindy Gale, supervisor, Wayne Brockway, town councilman. We're recognizing the town of North Elba and the village of Lake Placid for a comprehensive MOU, and there was a large article in the paper in the last day about the work that they're doing together. Really laying out a framework not just to to attack one specific project or one specific purchase, but really looking at establishing a collaborative relationship to seek out and pursue a whole range of potential partnerships between the town and village. Representing the town of North Elba, Roby Politi. And from the village of Lake Placid, Mayor Jamie Rogers. In the town of Chazy, Staub here? Someone here from the town of Chazy? We're expecting Staub. Well, Staub didn't make it, but we want to recognize and cite the town of Chazy and the Chazy Central Rural School District for a collaborative summer swimming program for children ages 5 to 18, with the town providing the swimming instructors and lifeguards, and the school district providing bus transportation. And we'll certainly get their award to them, but join me in applauding their effort. The towns of Peru, Blackbrook, Ausable, and Jay came together to jointly acquire a $63,000 road widener to share amongst their 4 towns, again, rather than duplicating effort and purchases. Representing the town of Jay, Randy Douglas, Supervisor, great name. Les Morrow, Director of Public Works. We know we're related somehow because my family background's from Blackbrook. Representing the town of Ausable, Sandy Senecal, Supervisor, and Tim Booth, Highway Supervisor. The town of Peru, Highway Superintendent David Hislop. David? And from the town of Blackbrook, Ricky Nolan, Supervisor. Then the town of Plattsburgh and the city of Plattsburgh for investing $290,000 to implement a viable sharing plan for the city's wastewater treatment facility. The project will provide new uniform metering devices to monitor and capture accurate flow data at each of 8 discharge locations. Representing the city of Plattsburgh, Mayor Don Castrovillo. And representing the town of Plattsburgh, Marty Mannix, Councilman, and Dave Comfort, Director of Water and Wastewater. And I would invite any of our mayors, supervisors, highway superintendents, and other representatives here if anybody would like to offer a comment. There's a couple of elected officials in fact who are very shy.
I'm not saying much right now.
How about your next idea?
Yeah, well.
First of all, I want to thank you, Gary, for inviting us, and John, thank you very much for those comments about Lake Placid. I'm glad to hear that all of those wise decisions are made in our community. And Senator Little, thank you very much, buddy, for everything you've done for not only Lake Placid, but all of us in terms of shared services and support and interest in our communities. Appreciate it very much. It's not so much about necessarily cost savings when we're talking about shared services. We're also talking about a situation of enhancing operational efficiencies, and I think that that's very important. And I know that in Lake Placid we feel that we're somewhat a model for shared services in that our community, we've thought about it not being about we versus them. It's not about the town versus the village. It's about the community and the necessity for Lake Placid to work together because of the events and all, and everything that we hold so dear to us in Lake Placid in terms of the Olympic venues and everything we're trying to accomplish. So I know that your support is very important to us, and I think that it's important for all of us in different municipalities to work together and try and have a relationship that ends up that's in the best interest of the community. So, Betty, I want to thank you very much, and I want to congratulate everyone else. So thank you.
And just to talk a little bit about what Betty was saying on the Local Government Efficiency Commission Committee, the one thing I've learned in this process in the last year or so is that, you know, when you look at the issues from the state level and how you need to level up and reform things and change structures, and then you think, boy, when you start looking at the regions and the different impacts, it's a huge challenge to figure out how to deal with the state, how to deal with the county, and how to deal with the local levels. And I really commend everybody here today for thinking outside the box. And I would encourage you all to think more. One of the thinkings behind the Memorandum of Understanding, and I said this when we came up with the idea, ideas really mean little. It's when every 10 signatures were on that document to start sharing the functions, and even before we reach the completion date, we've already accomplished some of the goals in that memorandum. And I think once you get the commitment and you can start the talking, you start the movement. But to take it another step further, now I'll talk a little bit about the next idea that I have, and this is one of the things that I've learned working with the senator, is that some of our smaller municipalities, we've been entrenched in the 18th century models of how our boundary lines are defined, but yet here we are in this 21st century trying to figure out how to function more efficiently. And the Memorandum of Understanding was to more focus less on the boundary lines and more on community functions, because our communities have all had grown. But the one thing that I would encourage people to start to think about is how to, I really believe local governments, especially in the smaller rural communities, really need to start thinking of backroom services, much like the BOCES model has with the schools, and to really start putting our thinking caps on and start sharing with our neighboring communities and how we can pool some of those resources. And I think our governments would actually benefit greatly from that. It's always a challenge going the next step, but I really thank everybody here and thank the senator for all her work at the state level and local level to think outside the box. And I would encourage everybody to keep thinking. Thanks.
Thank you.
First of all, congratulations to everybody here that's receiving the awards and the acclaim for thinking outside the box. Senator, you absolutely have been the champion of this. You have never wavered, and you've taken the political positions that are unpopular. I do that, as you know, but one of the things that needs to be told here is, when we talk about these things, I will tell you, you have to have the political will to follow through, because some of these things aren't popular. Jamie, you're right, some of these things have been going on since the 1800s, and you've got to think differently, and we have to. We are all being, I would hope, everybody who's involved in these types of decisions are being driven by the fact that the taxpayers need some help. And that's what I have always stood for. I know that everybody in this room does the same thing. And I thank, Senator Little for bringing this to the forefront. And you haven't let up, and we're not going to let up, and we have to do some more real thinking together to figure out how we become more efficient, reduce the taxes people are suffering from, and we have to do it as fairly as we can, but we have to continue to do so. So I applaud everybody here too for doing the right things. Okay, thank you very much.
I do want to thank Senator Little. She has been the driving champion behind this. When I first took office in 2004, we had to take down an old abandoned building, and my highway superintendent, Chris Garrow, we decided we'd get all the townships around us, and we actually received help from the town of Plattsburgh, the city of Plattsburgh, and we tore that old building down. And after that, I started thinking there were definitely ways we could do things. With the town of Plattsburgh, we've been sharing services with water and sewer in our youth commission since the 70s and early 80s. Now we've went a step further, and we're looking at every possible thing that we can share between the town of Plattsburgh and the town of Sable and town of Wilmington. We meet frequently to discuss things, how we can do it, and it's by the efforts of Senator Little really proposing all these possibilities for us, and I thank you very much for that. I want to take this a step further, and the taxpayers are always at our best interest, and health crisis is killing us, our tax. It's the driving force between our municipalities. The cost of healthcare is it. I'd like to see us take this a step further and have some sort of consortium between the municipalities and maybe Clinton, Essex, Franklin County, and see if we can make this a step further where we can actually have a cost savings to our taxpayers when it comes to healthcare.
And in answer to that, that's one of the things the Commission of Efficiency is looking at, because for the towns, like the school districts can all get together and have a consortium. But for the towns to get together, you have to have, I thought it was 1,500, now they're saying 2,000 employees. Well, in a small county, even though we have a lot of towns, you don't have 2,000 employees. And even though there may be husband-wives in that and children in that one employee's family, they don't count in the experience rating. And there are some obstacles in state law that make it difficult to do some of this sharing of services. And that's what this commission is really trying to get at. What are the obstacles? What are the changes that need to be made? And there are some models. The Secretary of State's office right now, we sent them up to Fort Edward, where they are turning the village DPW over to the town. Now, it's very small. They had a DPW director retire, and they only have 2 employees. But you wouldn't believe how complicated this is. And at one point, they didn't like each other, but they're beginning to like each other better. That's the good news. And so they're going to go up and help them. There are other models where a village and town combine their government. It becomes a village-town government when there is no other village within that town. There are possibilities for 2 towns to work together to combine different departments. I tried to get 2 counties to combine their probation department, and I thought it was really a no-brainer because the probation department director in Washington County was retiring, and the guy in Warren County was from Washington County. So that made, they must like each other here. But then you get into 2 union contracts, 2 sets of salaries, 2 of everything. But it doesn't make sense when you move from like Glens Falls to Hudson Falls and you can throw a stone, you have to change probation officers. And you lose that person on probation for 2 or 3 weeks with nobody. So there are a lot of things we can still do, but there are a lot of obstacles. And our commission, that's the one thing I think we need to be focusing on, and through legislation, change some of the laws and look at ways that we can remove these obstacles. BOCES is doing a backroom operation for 2 school districts, but now they've been told that BOCES can't be the internal auditor because the school districts are paying BOCES to do the thing. I still don't quite understand it, but there's another obstacle that they're throwing up to say that maybe we can't do it that way. So, and yet it has worked, but there's a lot of things that can be done, payroll, all of that, and these folks are really working at trying to put some of those things together, and I'm very, very pleased.
Anyone else? Thank you all again for what you're doing, and thank you all for coming.
The flag